Welcome, I'm Bev Adams. I own an independent paper crafting business showcasing products from Stampin' Up! I made this pretty bee card with products from Stampin' Up! I sell these products and also a few items to make crafting more convenient. I have the free detailed directions for this project on my website. Also on my website you'll find links to all the products that I used, and you'll be able to just click the links for the products that you would like to be taken to my online store at Stampin' Up! You'll see where to find all of that at the end of this video, so don't worry about taking notes. It's time to put stamps, ink, and paper together. I am using the Honeybee Home and the Honeybee Blooms dies. You can get these together as a bundle and save yourself 10%. I'm also using the Hive embossing folder. I think it works perfectly with this stamp set. And I'm using the Beautiful Shapes dies. I love that the hexagon emphasizes the honeycomb shape. I'm using the watercolor assortments to do my coloring. I'm going to be coloring with Garden Green. You could also color the flowers with crushed curry if you'd like, but I am using the Stampin' Blends to color the flowers in Daffodil Delight. I'm also using the Wink of Stella. I'm going to be using the 2022 In Color Square Gems. I'm using Garden Green, Tuxedo Black Memento ink, and Cinnamon Cider. I'm going to be doing a lot of the stamping on the Stamparatus, and I thought it was easier to stamp with the little spot. So I made my own Stampin' Spots with the uninked stamping spots and refill ink. My cardstock, I have a medium envelope. My card base is standard 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. If you're doing all your own cutting, you will need 3 pieces of basic white. I am using the thick basic white. These pieces are 4 by 5 1/4. One will go on the inside, one we're going to emboss, and one you will cut up, but I have already cut up the shapes. I use the number 1 hexagon for the Cinnamon Cider and the number 2 hexagon for the basic white. And I have already cut those pieces. I'm using the bee that faces to the left. I've already cut it out with the coordinating die. And this flower, and it has a coordinating die. I've already cut that out. And then I've cut out just really a scrap of Garden Green and a scrap of Cinnamon Cider. And I also did not tell you about these strips. I have 3 strips of the Cinnamon Cider. This is from the Heart and Home Designer Series paper. And I have 4 strips of the Garden Green, the kind of leaf pattern from that same set. I'm going to stamp the inside of my card. I'm going to stamp the right facing bee with the Tuxedo ink. And I'll color that bee in. Something loud. I hope it's not too loud for you to hear what I'm doing. Coloring the bee body in, and then I'm going to color the wings with the Wink of Stella. Add a little sparkle, and you can put a little sparkle on its head too. And I'm going to put one of those strips of the Garden Green for the inside, and I'm going to just lay it here so I know how far to put my glue. For me, it's easier to cut it at 6 inches and then trim it to fit later. If you want to go ahead and cut it to the 5 1/4, you can. And we can go ahead and put this on the inside of the card. Pulling in my Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine. I need the number 1 platform, and I need the embossing folder, and putting 1 layer in here. Putting that on the platform and covering it up with the gray number 4 plate and rolling it through. I should also say that you want to put the hinge side, so the hinge side should go into the machine first. And you could use either side of this embossing. I kind of like the ones that have the outlines as opposed to the hexagon bumps. I want to emphasize that by just picking up a little bit of the ink, and I should have had a piece of scratch paper. I'm going to start in the middle. Yeah, I just want it to be faint. So have a really light touch. I want to especially get around the edges. And it does not need to be an even coloring. Then I want to do some weaving with these strips. What I'd like to do is lay out 3 of the cinnamon cider. And there is an up and down to this, so let me see if I can spot it. With these thin strips, it doesn't matter a whole lot. Then I'm going to do just a simple over-under pattern. So the green went over, so this one has to go under, over, and under. And I'm not worried about making it even just yet. So this one went under, so now I'm going to go over, under, over. And once you get it woven, it kind of stays together, and I can turn it over, and then I want this first strip to be at about 1/2 inch, so I can put that in place. This strip should be right about there, so that this is 1 inch from this edge to this edge, and then put this one in the middle. And then when you get these evened up, you can go ahead and adhere them and fold it down. Now, if that looks terribly complicated, or you don't feel like you want to go to that extra effort, and I probably should have used the tear and tape so it stayed down without having to wait. Now the long ones don't have quite as much overhang, so I want to kind of even those up a little bit. Again, I want 1/2 inch from the edge. The other outside piece should be 1 inch away from that. And then this one should be in the middle. And I will use tear and tape on this side so you can see how much easier it is. So I'll take off the backing and flip this over. And those stay right away. And again, you could just trim it even. I think it's worth it to add a few glue dots here just to make sure that this does not, you can kind of see that it's popped up a little bit. You could absolutely glue these ends down, glue these ends down and do your weaving, and then it will already be glued. You can just snip off the ends and not worry about tucking them under. You could also certainly just lay down the greens and not weave and just lay the cinnamon cider on top of it, or vice versa. Whatever way you want to do it is fine. And then I'm going to add some adhesive and put this on my card front. When I do adhere embossed pieces, I tend not to use the seal because you don't want to press down on the embossing. You want to keep that lift. So I find that the liquid glue or the tear and tape does a pretty good job either way. You could also use glue dots. Set that aside. If you're just making one card, you could totally just stamp it and then cut it out. But when I'm doing a workshop, or if I'm making a lot of them, I go ahead and cut them out, because you can cut them out closer together and save cardstock. And then save one piece that is cut out with all the spacing in there. And then you can put these in like puzzle pieces. And I'm putting a stamp case underneath. I want to ink the flowers in the garden green. The bee in the tuxedo black. And the greeting in cinnamon cider. And having them on the spots makes that easy, but there's plenty of room. You could certainly use the full-size stamp pads if you'd like. I'm using my friend Gidget's gadget to get a good even press. And this is really fine, but I might want to add a little bit more garden green. Maybe I should have put some more ink on my Stampin' Spot. But the thing about the Stamparatus is, because it's stamping in exactly the same place, you can double stamp and get twice as much ink. I really want to keep that right where it is, and the take your pick tool is a good way of lifting those pieces out. But having stamped on here, if I did get it moved, and I did, I usually stamp once and then I can put this back right where I want it by just looking at the stamped image and those lined up. And I see that I just have a little bit of poking to do, and I want to color these. So I'm using the Daffodil Delight. I'm going to start with the light color, and I'm just going to quickly color the flower buds. Now I haven't given this a chance to dry, so I'm kind of coloring, trying not to scrub over the ink too much. If you let it dry first, you don't have that issue. Again, you could color these flowers in with the crushed curry from the watercolor pencils. And then I'm just kind of adding a little bit. I'm not really taking time to shade. I'm just drawing a little bit of lines. Oh, I see, I missed the bottom of that flower. But just trying to add a little bit of shade to the bottom of the flower, the center of the flower. Just a little. This flower is facing away, so it's not quite as dark. And we do not have a garden green Stampin' Blend. And I could leave it white as it is without coloring it, but I'm just wanting to add a little bit of color with the watercolor pencil. I keep my watercolor pencils in a stamp case with a very small pencil sharpener and a blender pen, so that and that makes it very handy. I'm going to stamp this bee with the Stampin' Blends, much like I did with the one on the inside. And we'll do the wings in Wink of Stella, and maybe the head, adhering the stamped greeting to the cinnamon cider. And I'll pop this up with Stampin' Dimensionals. You will want the mini Stampin' Dimensionals for the bee and the flower, I think. You might be able to get away with the big ones. So I'm putting this pretty much in the middle of the card. So I'll put that bee up here in the corner. Pull in my craft mat. And this is really fine gluing, and I should probably have used the adhesive sheets for these. We also have the fine tip glue pen, because this is very fine gluing. Another way you can do this is put a glob of adhesive just here and pick it up with a sponge and dab it on that way. So I'm putting this one, I'm pretty much putting the base of the grass at the center of my weaving, or the center of my strips. And putting this flower, starting at the same place, but angling this way down just above the greeting. And then I will put mini Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of the flower. And I'm putting that kind of between the garden green and the cinnamon cider piece. And I thought it needed just a little bit more sparkle than you get from the Wink of Stella. I'm pulling in these square gems. I'm putting a bumblebee over the green. Or you could put the cinnamon cider, either one. And I don't really need one in that center. And I'll put a cinnamon cider. Oh, I think I'm doing this different than I did on my card. Let me show you what I did. because the cinnamon cider doesn't show up so much on the cinnamon cider. So on this one, I put the cinnamon cider on the green and the bumblebee on the cinnamon cider. But that's it. Here is the web address for this project, where you'll find the free directions and links for the products I used. You can click individual products or the Add All to the cart. You will be able to remove products you don't need or add more products. I have lots of resources on my website. Most of them are free. It's easy to miss some of those resources or to get lost exploring. Let me take you on a quick tour. Just under the banner image are 6 links. Under Shop, you'll find links to the products from Bev, shopping strategies, my frequent shopping points, and a sampling from the clearance rack. Under Inspiration, you can link to scroll all of my projects since 2011. The products may be retired, but you may be inspired by a layout, color combination, or a technique. I have the basics, where I've written about stamps, ink and paper, cutting, adhesives, and my favorite tools. You'll find a link to Techie Tips and an easy link back to my latest post. Click on Getting Organized, and you'll find some of my resources for stamp case slips, product labels, large labels for designer series paper, and more. Case inserts for dies, embellishments, and anything I think might fit in a stamp case, including ink refills. You'll also find color tools and charts, a practically free stamp pad storage solution, tabs and a quick reference for the annual catalog, and plans for toolkits. I have a video of my craft wall and more. Click on Evernote Current Products and you can learn how to share my notebook. This notebook has a note for every current product from Stampin' Up! It allows you to search by color, image, product type, word, phrase, or event, and more. I include French, German, and Dutch names and numbers when available, and the prices for all the markets. Evernote synchronizes on your phone, tablet, and or your desktop or laptop computer, so you can look through the Stampin' Up! Catalog from anywhere, anytime. You can copy my notes for the products you own so you can find just what you're looking for. When products retire, I move them to the Retired Products Notebook, which I also share, and I host a notebook for Paper Pumpkin. Click on Sip Together and then Let's Stamp to come stamp with me or join my Sip Together team. There's also a link to learn a bit about me. The sitemap will help you navigate all these links from one page. And there are quick links along the side of my page. Shop Now takes you to my online store at Stampin' Up! You'll see the current host code. It would be a great help to me if you use that if you are ordering less than $150. You can click on the current catalogs to page through them online. And I've got a link to a color lab to get color combinations. And then there are my links to my 5 most recent posts. Thank you very much for stopping by and hope to see you soon.